To add health to our blocks, what I want to do is I actually want to add it to the script that controls all of the blocks so that I can configure the health for each block based on um, that particular block. Um, I think my green blocks, I think are just going to be one hit and you knock them out. I think my red blocks are going to be 3 hits, and so they'll be like extra tough. Or maybe I'll make my red blocks two, and then maybe I'll make like another sprite for like a really big boss block that like takes a bunch of hits to kill. But regardless, I want to put it all on the block script because that kind of is the home of all of the things that control all the different interactions with that. You can probably guess this process that we're going to go through here because it's going to start to be very familiar to you. Basically, we need to set up a variable for how many hits our block can take. We need to set up a method that handles what happens if the number of times it is hit is greater than or equal to the max amount of times it can be hit. So if you want to take kind of a little mini challenge just based on the way that I just said that, so setting up your variable, setting up a method that has an if statement that says if the times hit is greater than or equal to the number of max hits, then run the destroy method. So if you want to go ahead and pause right now, the way I just said that should be enough to get you pretty close to what you need to do. But if you want to follow along with me, you can. I don't blame you for it. So let's just go through it in that order. So we need a serialized field. It's going to be an integer. We're not going to have like partial health, so it's going to be all whole numbers. We'll call that max hits. It's just the maximum number of hits that a object can take before it gets knocked out. We also need a field, and we're going to serialize it. We don't necessarily need it serialized forever. It's just so that we can watch it in the inspector. But it's going to be another integer, and we're going to call this one times hit, so that we can set up exactly how many times, or as we play the game, it will say it's been hit this many times, and then if that many times is greater than or equal to max hits, then we're going to do the destroy method. So now that we have that, let's come down here on collision because we need to control what's going to happen here. So in our collision, we already have if it's breakable, run destroy block. What the trick to this is that we don't always want to just destroy the block. Sometimes we want to do something else. So let's go ahead and right above destroy block, let's put another method in here. What do we want to call this? We want to call it something to do with getting hit. So let's call it get hit. I don't know if that's maybe the best language, but it'll work for me. So obviously it's got red lines under it because we don't have that method set up yet. So private void get hit, curly brackets, open, close. All right. So if it's breakable is equal to true, then we're going to do the get hit, and we're going to already destroy the block. So we don't want to do the destroy block here. We want to make it so that we can see and hear whether or not it gets destroyed. So let's go the times hit and add to it. So if you put a variable like an integer right here and hit plus plus, it will add 1 to that integer. So basically we're saying whenever you get hit, you're going to add 1 to the times hit. And it's going to start at 0, obviously, because it doesn't have any other variable entered in for it. So it's just going to go up to 1. So every time it gets hit, plus plus adds 1. And then whenever we add our times hit, now we have to set up that if statement I was talking about that says if the times hit is greater than or equal to, this should look familiar from math class, max hits, then what do we want to do? Well, if it's greater than or equal to max hits, we want to destroy the block. So let's go ahead and grab this and put it right here. So now what we're saying is if it's breakable, then we have to run this other method called get hit. Get hit says we add to the times hit, and if it's greater than or equal to the max hits, we're going to run destroy block. And destroy block creates our electricity visual effects, our play clip at point, and our destroy game object. So let's save this and see how this looks in our game. Let's throw a green robot. Oh, let me scroll up and find my green robot after it initializes. Line endings, blub, blub, blub. Okay, green robot, let's move him right here so he's really easy to kill. And let's go ahead and put a red robot in my scene. I'm not going to make him a moving robot because I just want him here for testing purposes. I will delete him afterwards, but I want to see the difference between these two things. So on green robot, let's go ahead and down in the prefabs, check our script. And max hits, I think we can hit that, leave that at, or change this to 1. And red robot, max hits 3. Let's see how this looks. So if we run the game, okay, that one was hit once. Now if I play and hit the red guy, 1, 2, 3. Yep, it was hit 3 times. Maybe I'll slow down my ball just a little bit to make it so that you can really see. Let's set my Y velocity at like 10. It's like half speed. 1, 2, 3. Yep, there we go. Okay, so you saw it went very slowly. My ball is very sluggish now. It's just bouncing around aimlessly. All right. Set that to 20 for now. Apply that to the prefab because I think 20 will be fine. All right, so I now have a health system. I basically say green blocks will die immediately, red blocks will take some damage. Now, the thing with this is that now we've got a system that says, hey, if it has been hit, then we just add it kind of in our heads. We're keeping track in our heads in our game. We're not actually like displaying anything about it. So we need to set up a different way to kind of keep track of our sprites so that whenever we hit a thing, it looks different as we hit it. And the reason I picked the pack I did, if you remember way back in the day, is I said I wanted damage levels. And the damage levels were already included in this. So if we go to our stock stuff and I find my robot pack, my PNGs, and we're looking at side view. Now I've got all these that are like red damage 1, damage 2, and then I can take both of these. I'm just going to select both of them and drag them up into my sprites. So now I have the regular one, slightly damaged, and like extra scuffed up, and one of its eyes been knocked out, so that I can make a little kind of visual progression of what's going to happen. So back in our block script, we're going to need another serialized field. I know, it's your favorite. I'm going to get really good at saying that word. This is going to be of type sprite, and it's going to be an array because it's going to contain a series of pictures of sprites. Let's call them damage sprite. That seems like a good name. So it's a sprite for whenever it is damaged. And let's see, where would it make sense? Okay, so whenever we collide with something, we have this method already done. That's whenever it's colliding. So that seems like a good spot to put it. And I think, let's say, whenever you get hit, it says when times hit is greater than or equal to max hits to destroy the block. We can add to this and say else do something else, right? Which is kind of what we did in our number guess game. We said if it's this, then do this, else do this other thing. And then we want it to do something. We want it to show the next sprite in an order. I don't know that I want to put all of that in this one little spot. So let's make another method so that like we've got methods linking up to this and not like a bunch of messy code. So Let's call it next damage sprite for our method. And obviously it's going to be all curly or angry at us because we don't have that method yet. So create the method. So private void next damage sprite. Right? Yes. Okay. And let's fill this in. So we need to set up an integer called sprite index and set it to equal to times hit -1. The reason it's -1 is because obviously we want our 0, 1 on there. And so obviously we're going to need that. And we need to get a component because we need to get reference to our sprite renderer. Which is the component on our block that tells our game what our sprite looks like, .sprite. And then we're going to set that equal to damage sprite. And we're going to do this because it's an array, and we're going to call it sprite index. Let's see what's going on in our game so far with this. So if we look at any of our blocks, let's start with our gray robot. Well, let's look at our red robot because he's the one who's going to have this. So we've got damage sprite as this right here. And right now its size is 0. So we need to add to it our damage 1 and damage 2 so that it will switch between those two things. Let's see how this works. Yep, that worked. All right, it was very, very quick. Maybe I'll try to shoot these guys up at the top so it's a little bit slower. Let him float back over here, and boop. Oh, he just destroyed. Interesting. So let's see what's going on here. Our moving robots have red robot, but they don't have damage sprites on them. Probably because I added them after the fact. So if I add... Oh, I bet I know why. It's because this is actually a different prefab instance. So let's go back here. I'm going to fix this. It's going to be actually a really simple fix. I just didn't even think about it. Okay, so moving robot has a separate red robot that is not the same as our regular red robot. So his max hits is 3, and he does not have any sprites yet. So let's add his damage 1 and his damage 2. So that I added it down here, so these guys should have them, except this guy because I broke his instance. Let me hit revert. Now he does. All right. So these guys both have them now. All right. Easy mistake to make. You might have made it. You might have already figured it out. So that is also great. Let me shoot. Boop. Damaged. Oh, I died, but you saw it went to the next sprite, and that is exactly what we wanted. So the script is working. I'm just, not the greatest at showing you it in action. My bad. So yeah, now we have a system that says if you get hit, there's a certain number of hits you can get hit, and we have different sprites for those hits. So you don't have to make your game identical to mine. If you want all of your blocks to have damage sprites, or all of them to, like, whenever they get damaged, they just turn slightly more red. That's up to you. You do you. This is just the way I'm doing mine. You might, if you got a pack that doesn't have something that's going to work super well for your damage, I would suggest opening up Microsoft, or opening up your picture on Microsoft Paint on your computer. And I think the easiest way is if you just like take a square, like if you have like a square block that you're using, take the eraser and just erase a couple swipes through it to make like one level of damage, and then erase a couple more swipes through it to make two levels of damage. And those can be your sprites just as easily as anything else. So you might have to get a little bit creative on this step, and that is something I am entirely sure you are capable of. And from here, I'm not sure exactly which things I'm going to work on next. So I guess we'll see. We're officially at video 10, so this is definitely our longest video lesson so far. Hopefully you are keeping up and figuring it out. Now that you've got pretty much every building block you could possibly need for making this game. As far as like the core stuff that the game you could make hundreds of levels with just the assets you have here. Maybe it wouldn't be the most interesting game, but it would be something, right? So yeah, we're gonna keep on tweaking and tuning. Maybe we'll give our game a little bit more character. We definitely, at some point, probably want to add some music to the background because it's kind of just a thing we might want to do with our games in the future anyway, so might as well practice it here. Oh yeah, and we have to add scoring, making it so that whenever our blocks are damaged, they give us a score, and that score carries over from scene to scene, so that's going to be super fun. So I guess that's where we're going next. So I will see you then.